Okay, we're going to move on to, again, Cozy Bayou is not about connecting history, but it is about recognition. It's about respect. It's about value, and it's definitely about perception. We're going to go on to the source of light of the East. Again, we're in chapter 3 of Metu Neteru, written by Ra'u Nefer Amen. While in the past decade, a great deal of progress has been made, at least amongst black scholars, to document the fact that the Cometians, or the people of ancient Egypt, were black. And that's what we were pretty much explaining in the last few chapters. Now, the book does break down each and every single embodiment that was even in the Bible on how it connects our people to everybody. We are here for everybody, meaning we're all one. And the separation and still needing to illustrate something that is still unknown to the white men is what fathoms me. So this is why I do what I do. Again, I am reading from the volume 1 of the Ra'u Nefer Amen, the Metu Neteru. So there's a lot of authors of great civilizations that were black, and a great deal remains to be done to show that the authors of these great civilizations of India, of Sumer, of Canaan, of Phoenicia were also black. It's not about getting the blackness out, but it's definitely getting the respect to know that this is where it all originated from. What upsets me is to see our people, even in Ethiopia, even in Africa to this day, still suffering and wanting and needing food of a supply chain in which we started for thee. That's the respect. That's the anger that I would have if I had any. You know, it used to be for my mom, my dad, my family, or whatever, but it was never about that. It was just the system and how it was taught to us as people is what angered me. So even after Christianity, I got into going into other types of studies, and I looked and found where everyone is out right now, and it's all about the perception behind the words of ancient Egyptianology. So although the facts have been clearly known by white scholars from the immemorial, from the immemorial. So yes, it is all about ancient Egyptianology. And ancient Egyptianology is the study of many, much material than which we can all grasp in one day. And that's why I'm doing those 7 volumes. So we can understand how all this correlates together. So we can understand how we got here. It's not a Big Bang Theory. It's way deeper than alchemy, as I said before. It just gets really deep. But this right now is, again, just giving the basis of where the Metu Neteru comes in play in civilization. Now, it is the mere product of the inability of the Europeans to cope with the fact that the greatest contributions to the establishment of civilization were made by the same race that enslaved and dispersed throughout the Americas. And again, that's the science, it's the geometry, it's the algebra, it's the astronomy, it's the mathematics, it's the writing, etc. You know, they were made by the same race, us, but yet they were enslaved and dispersed throughout the Americas. And I like to believe that when God made the heavens and earth, and when he opened his eyes, it wasn't just Adam and Eve, because it took me a long time to think that what was going on with Adam and Eve. However, I had to believe that he put all different races on the planet everywhere. Except for one. All right, welcome back. So, in continuance of the source of the light of the East, one of the greatest losses that mankind has suffered from this distortion of history is the inability to truly understand the great spiritual wisdom of antiquity. Scholars have resorted to all sorts of intellectual speculations about spiritual matters that can only be known through direct experiences and practice. How else but through speculation can one discover the true meaning of teachings and beliefs for which there are either no written records or that has come down to us shrouding into the veil of allegories and myths. Now, one may ask with the apparent justification, but there is an alternative. Now, once it's realized that the wisdom of antiquity was that of the same blacks who are today still dwelling in India, in Sub-Sahara, in Africa, etc., then the alternatives will be made clear. Through one-to-one correspondence, for example, if I note similarities between the West African Yoruba deity Abatala or Abatala and the Dravidian goddess Tara, whose mantra is Om, and the Comatian deity Usar, whose names conceal the mantra Aum, I can contest my hypothesis with the existing rituals of Abatala, the goddess Tara, and the surviving material about Usar. Now, this work has been done extensively for the past 16 years by the priests and priestesses of the Uset Society, with the results that the syncretism between all black civilizations, past and present, have been achieved. Now, very few people realize that the yoga teachings that are being decimated throughout the world are fundamentally a creation of Africa. Hinduism, as we know today, is a blend of prehistoric Western, European religion with many systems extracted from the original African culture base. The earliest evidence of yogic practices date back around 3000 BC. Figurines of men seated in the lotus pose and symbols of Shiva and Shakti, the main symbols of the ancient black Dravidian spiritual culture, were found in the evacuated ruins of the two oldest centers of the civilization in the Indus Valley, Harappa, Mohenjo, and Daro. These cities were neatly laid out with rectangular city blocks, streets crossing each other at right angles, brick houses, public baths with steaming heat, underground sewer systems, etc., as early as 3000 BC. And they were senselessly destroyed by whites and the Vanika Aryans, the Vedanic Aryans, who invaded them and conquered the area between 15 to 800 BC. The History of Ancient India by the publisher Motilya Bandorisa in 1967, Rama Shankar Tripathi, gives the following description of the Dravidians, who have been identified as the originators of the historic wisdom of Egypt. Goes on to say the Dravidians, so-called the Sanskrit terms Dravidia, were one of the earliest cultured races of India. Western Asia is, however, generally supposed to have been their original Abu, and the similarity of the Dravidian and the Sumerian ethnic types undoubtedly lends some color to this view. The Dravidians were conversant with the use of metals, and their pottery was of improved type. They knew agriculture and were perhaps the earliest people to build dams across rivers for irrigation purposes. They constructed houses and fortifications. As described by Dr. L.D. Barnett, Dravidian society was to some extent